I think my biggest learning experience in general was that we have so much to learn from the older generation. So for us, the divide exists because of technology or things that we inherently have grown up with. But for them, the people that we help, they're teachers, they're mentors, and they've been in the workforce all their lives. And it was so important to see how much we, at the time as high school students, could actually learn from them.
Welcome to TRIIBE Talk, where we alternate between current and next-gen changemakers to demonstrate that age doesn't impact the quality of one's work. I'm here with the founder of Bridge the Gap, Varuni Chopra. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. It's super great to be here.
Wonderful. Well, before we get started, I want to mention that TRIIBE is sponsored by Rayze, R-A-Y-Z-E, a mobile-first platform powering individual activism, corporate giving, and nonprofit volunteerism. So download Rayze on Google Play or the App Store to give, volunteer, and connect.
Streamr. TRIIBE Talk is a Streamr studio production. Stream your podcast, stream your story, stream yourself. Try it free at Streamr.nyc. Make your voice, brand, and message seen and heard on every platform today.
Varuni, I'm so excited to not only welcome you into the new cohort as we get started, but also to learn more about your story. So I was wondering if you could start with just a little bit of an overview of what Bridge the Gap is today, and then we'll dive into how it got started and the motivation behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a quick overview. Bridge the Gap is an organization that I started during the pandemic to really help senior citizens not only understand the technology that we're surrounded with, but more as a means of communication between them and their family. So that's kind of where we got started. And now we're expanding onto understanding smart home devices, really, I guess, a good way to segue that into more modern technology, but where we really started is helping seniors use technology for connectivity.
Awesome. Did you start during the pandemic then, or what was the spark that got you involved in this movement?
Yeah, absolutely. So my grandparents are actually overseas in India. So the main way that we've always been used to connecting with them is through technology and through calling and video voice recordings. So basically, what I'd noticed is that was something that a lot of other seniors started to struggle with during the pandemic when that was the primary method of communication between them and their families. So I noticed that that was an issue in my community, and I had already been used to working with my grandparents for doing those same activities. So I started going to senior citizen homes and asking if they would be open to me coming in and just helping them learn those same skills. So that's where we got started, and that's really how we started to grow.
Varuni, tell me a little bit more about how the organization is doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So something that we've kind of noticed since over the pandemic is technology needs really shift. So during the pandemic, while we focused on really helping people connect with their families or do voice calling or video calling or even send photos, now we're pivoting a little bit more on how to make the quality of life better of our senior citizens. So whether that's helping them with smart home devices, we're always looking for different ways to help them, even if it's with their online grocery shopping needs. So we've really pivoted to see what seniors need today, and that's something we're continuously working on, which I'm really excited to have the tribe mentors to help us do that as well. But basically,
Awesome.
what we've done is started chapters all across the United States, and we have lesson plans that our virtual volunteers create, and we use those at our sessions. So while the needs have changed, our format really has stayed the same.
That's incredible. And I'm so curious. I mean, to be so interested in supporting communities of all different ages, how does that start? Like how big of an importance is family to you?
Yeah. So, like I said a little bit before, having family overseas really made it important to understand how connectivity is different for everyone. So that's something that I became really passionate about, and I wanted to help other people do the same thing. Especially that's been my story all my life is having to connect with my grandparents virtually, or that being the main method of communication. But I know that's not the reality for the majority of people within my own community. So that's really what started my passion on helping others connect in ways that they're not used to.
Right. Do you feel like I mean, certainly you've been working on this project for quite a while, seeing as it was kind of started in the pandemic, which is years ago now. Um, do you feel like as you're taking this new chapter forward, that there's a shift compared to when you were working on this in high school?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the main things that we were able to get in high school was a lot of different funding for our different events. So, we were able to give away smart home devices. We were really able to have food there, all of these things that entice people to originally come in, since we are just a free program working with these senior citizen homes. And obviously, going to college has made it different. Not only now that I don't have transportation to go in person myself, I've been able to take a more overseeing role as to the organization. But something that I hope to do, like I did in high school, is be able to go out myself and run these sessions and then hopefully garner more funding to make our events even bigger than they've been in the past.
That's wonderful. I mean, volunteering is really important to me. Even the first day of the year is always a full day of volunteering at a local center, giving out oranges, things like that, so that people can start the new year off fresh. But when you work on something like this, where it's all about in-person volunteering, was that also a part of your life beforehand, or how did you first get involved in the nonprofit world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So throughout high school, I spent a lot of time volunteering with an organization called Youth Challenge, where we actually adapted different sports and different activities to help youth with disabilities be able to participate just like all of us. So that was really important to me at the time. And it's really important to see how small things that you can do or small adaptations that we can make really affect someone's life in such like in a much bigger way than we could have ever imagined. So when I was starting my own initiative, I kind of took lessons that we were already using just for a different purpose, a different age group, and applying them to my own volunteer activities.
Right. Oh, that's so amazing. So you took lessons from the opportunities you had that were already set up to create solution that felt more dear to you, more to home, because since you couldn't connect with your grandparents already, then as others are struggling with COVID, it was really bridging the gap there. Oh, that's the name.
Yes, that's exactly how we came up with it, is we just saw this huge intergenerational divide and we wanted to make sure that we could do something about it.
So talk to me about that further. I mean, an intergenerational divide is not just between senior citizen homes and high schools. How do you feel like that's played out, especially as you've continued to share the work that you're doing, or as you've continued to field questions on it?
Yeah, so something that we'd noticed is technology was something dividing us from the older generation. It was so natural to us and it was so unnatural to them. So for us, that was a huge part of bridging that, is making sure that we were able to take something that was so familiar to us and easy for us to teach and help them out with it. But I think my biggest learning experience in general was that we have so much to learn from the older generation. So for us, the divide exists because of technology or things that we inherently have grown up with. But for them, the people that we help, they're teachers, they're mentors, and they've been in the workforce all their lives. And it was so important to see how much we, at the time as high school students, could actually learn from them. So I think that was one of the coolest things that I was able to do throughout high school. And even now, I think there's just so much to learn.
Oh, that's great. What a good mindset. Let's talk about scale. Um, when you've built something like this, I feel like it's very gratifying to work on just your local community. But you've mentioned you've grown significantly further than that. So how did you feel about kind of taking on that challenge of helping those that you've never met, of having those work inside that you've never met or that you're just starting to get to know? And how did you handle communicating with more people to get that job done?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of, I guess, the easiest and best parts for me to explain is how organically our growth happened. So, the way I had started was literally just going by myself to different senior citizen homes, calling them, seeing if they'd be willing to have just me and my friends come help their senior citizens. And eventually, more students started to become interested. A lot of schools had community service clubs, so we were able to naturally reach out to them, post on their volunteer boards. So, it was super organic in that way. And since we had at that point a social media presence and a lot of interest from communities that weren't able to start this up themselves, we had people that would be virtual volunteers for us. They would help us make the lesson plans or even volunteer applications. They would help us go through those. So, in the most organic way possible, we had all of these people that were willing to help us virtually. And that really helped us expand into other communities or other students that were willing to start it, whether in person or virtually in that area. So, that's really how all of our impact ended up growing.
That's awesome. How many senior citizens homes are you supporting now?
Yeah, so just in my own community, we support about 20. And then similarly, across all of the United States, we've helped over 600 different people in different areas. And including our virtual volunteers, we have over 200 people involved now. So that's been really amazing just to see the growth.
Oh, that's so cool. I feel like it's such a pivotal moment because every single person that volunteers is directly supporting elders in their communities, those that have already lived with so much grace throughout a lot of a lot of time, which I don't think we take for granted necessarily, especially on the young side, saying, well, we have technology, this is all that we know, this is our future, but to recognize that there are people who've lived not just the future, but the present and past, and to be able to learn from them. Can you tell me more about that, on how, when you go to teach them skills that you're good at, how you learn skills that you may not be?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the main times that I was volunteering with senior citizens was actually during my college application process. And while I was helping people that are teachers, have been in the workforce, I had so much to learn from them on honestly just taking a step back and enjoying the process that I'm in. So, one of the biggest pieces of advice that I'd gotten was to obviously put myself out there, to try my best when I'm applying to all these schools, but really understand that I'll end up really liking wherever I go or regardless that everything will work out. And I think that's one of the biggest pieces of learning that I got from all the people that I helped. But I know other volunteers, we worked one-on-one with senior citizens, so we're able to create these long-lasting friendships, relationships, and we would come back every month or we would come back every week depending on where we were. And it was just really great to see all of these connections over a long period of time being formed.
Well, putting it to the test, a lot of the people that you must have met and taught while in person, now that you no longer can do it as often, are you able to connect with them over the phone?
Yeah, absolutely. Our senior citizens, they helped us. They filled out these online feedback forms at the end of it. Some of them even stay connected with us on social media, which is something that they definitely weren't familiar with before. And we've even given Google Homes, and so we still get pictures back from some of the senior citizens and the people that we've helped. So it's very gratifying to see how not only was it just a one session thing, it really stuck with them.
Oh, that's so cool. And what about in terms of encouragement? Now that you're in college and with a new community, how do your peers feel about the work that you're doing?
I would say it's always been met with support. When I was in high school, I could easily convince my friends and get a huge group of people to go out there with me. I think definitely harder now since there's no one, I guess, taking that initiative in my community specifically. But by the role that I have as overseeing all these other students in their communities, there's a really good succession plan. So once they become a president of a chapter or a vice president of a chapter, they have younger people that they can directly pass it on to. So I think that's something I wish I'd done a better job in my specific community, but is something we're working towards now, is making sure that it keeps going in the communities that it's helping.
Of course. No, I think succession and supporting or encouraging others to get involved as well, giving them leadership opportunities is really challenging as well as rewarding. But I mean, great things don't come easy, so good on you. What about in terms of this next year? What do you feel like is the biggest thing that you're working on now or that you're excited to work on?
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm really excited to work on is pivoting a little bit. So, since the pandemic has happened, there's been a lot less of a demand for technology connectivity. At the time, all the senior citizen homes had all these restrictions on who could come in or out, which is what made our job for them so important, is to help them with the virtual aspect. But since that's a little bit less of an issue, the technology piece has received a little bit less interest. So we want to find a way to pivot where we're still connecting people with each other. We're still creating the same long-lasting connections, but maybe just in a different way since needs change as time changes too.
Right. I think the gist of when I think of Bridge the Gap is not just about the technology of how you started, but just the relationship building between two generations that traditionally don't get to connect, or perhaps historically did, but no longer because of this new technological divide. Do you feel like the people you're encouraging when they're working have also started to build new ideas inside? Or how do you encourage the presidents of each chapter to also like make the movement more of their own?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a big example of this is within my own household, actually. So, me and my sister had gone out to all these senior homes. She was one of the first people that went out with me. And something that she was really passionate about is making people feel special. So, while we were doing it in different ways, we were connecting people through technology. Something that she started to do on her own, completely with a different age group, is she actually started helping people who had money was a little tight. Same thing during the pandemic. People we were able to connect with is help them celebrate their birthdays, so throw birthday parties. So something that she became passionate about is through our mission of connecting people, she actually found her way to connect with people, which was throwing these birthday parties for people in low-income communities or working with the Boys and Girls Club of America, who's previously someone we hadn't partnered with, but that's kind of how like the volunteers in our community even use this or like the ideas that we're using to connect people and to start their own initiatives, if that makes sense.
That's awesome. What about you? Do you feel like when you started this initiative, was it the dream to create it to this point? Or what were some of the big pivots that you've already made?
Yeah, so when I'd started it, I hadn't expected any of the support that we'd gotten. Is I just thought I would do this for a couple of people. I would go over to a couple senior homes and hopefully just help maybe 10 people or the 15 people that would come to our events. And what I really didn't expect was all the support that we were able to get in the community. So businesses were willing to offer us in-kind donations. Krispy Kreme would give us donuts, or like a local pizza place would provide pizza for our events. So what I thought was so amazing is something I'd never pictured to become a big item or other schools to get involved with is how many people really come together when you have the will to do something good. So that was my biggest surprise coming into it. And it's just been amazing to see how it's grown over time, but definitely not something at all I'd expected when I just started volunteering with my friends.
Yeah, those types of partnerships don't come easy. I can certainly say that firsthand. So good on you for being able to ask, really, for support from others and then receive it with gratitude so that you can spread the movement. Now, you mentioned that that's a little harder now because you're in college, so you no longer get a lot of the youth support that you perhaps did before. What are some of the other methods at which you're looking to get support?
So one of the main ways is recruiting more high school volunteers. I think high school is a very interesting time where there's a lot of need for volunteer hours and things that not only help you professionally or academically, but also help you with that community aspect. So one of the biggest ways I have is still reaching back out to high schools or people who want to show leadership in different ways and get involved. So that's been my biggest way of recruiting. And then also our virtual volunteer piece is getting people that would like to be involved but don't have the means to do it in person, is they help with a lot of logistical things, making sure that our lesson plans are something that people want to see these days. So the virtual piece has been huge for me now that I've been to college, and the in-person piece is something we're trying to work on still.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I feel like, to your credit, high school is such an untapped opportunity, and with so much more stress for better resumes, as people are looking to find ways outside of school to demonstrate their interests, giving them an outlet just to volunteer, take a break, but also an outlet to respect themselves or present themselves in a new light is tremendous. Do you feel like when you're sourcing new volunteers, they come in already like deeply involved or interested in involvement because of course they all have grandparents themselves? Or how do you connect the movement to new volunteers?
Yeah, I think to your point, a lot of our volunteers, when they come in, do have a little bit of a resume mindset where it's something that they want to show involvement out of school, but they weren't sure how to do that. So a lot of our volunteers come in with that perspective. But something huge we've noticed is the majority of our events, over 80% of our volunteers actually do come back and they want to come in every week. They want to come every month. So it's been really great to see while people might have just come in to start something or to do it for their resume, they've really been able to make these long-lasting connections and actually really do enjoy working with the senior citizens. So I think it becomes more personal to them the longer that they're involved.
Absolutely. I'm certainly also a believer that someone's initial reason for doing something is not reason to judge them for continuation. And so when they keep coming back and they start realizing that there's something bigger, it just means you've helped them down a better path or a better opportunity. That's great. Tell me more about your start, especially you mentioned that you worked on it with your sister coming involved and she would join you for volunteering and then helped create birthday party celebrations for underprivileged too. How has this volunteering kind of created a new form of relationship with your sister?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, some of the things that we've done together is when I was really involved in this mission, she would help me cold call places, or she was right there with me, helping me connect with all these different organizations, which in turn, when she had a slightly different passion, or instead of continuing the work that I was doing, she had something that she was a little bit more passionate about, made it so much easier to take those skills and help her in the same way that she was able to help me. So, by going in person, not to senior homes, but to boys and girls clubs and really just reaching people that we hadn't previously reached, I think was a huge turning point in our relationship. And we're both able to help each other with the things that we're passionate about and make them successful. So that's been really amazing to have.
Awesome. Have you been able to accept volunteers of different age categories, or do you mostly focus or exclusively focus on youth?
So when we did it in So there were kind of two pieces to this. So at the beginning, what we'd done is we'd recruited a bunch of high school and even college students or service sororities and service frats we found were really great resources to use. But basically, what ended up happening is we didn't expand a lot to different age groups just to keep the circle tight or somewhat of a cohort relationship with both our young people and senior citizens. But what we had realized was some of the senior citizens actually were really great with technology and they wanted to help out. So while they wouldn't have originally thought of helping other senior citizens within the facility, when we were there to help them, they would come in and volunteer with us. So that kind of created both ways as we were helping the senior citizens, but they were willing to help each other, which I think was the biggest piece of it because we couldn't always be in the facilities with them, but they were able to help each other even when we weren't there. So that kind of was a different age group getting involved than we'd originally pictured.
Oh, that's awesome. What about in terms of your grandparents and the way that they see you helping so many people? First question, has it helped them? Have they learned more from it than you initially expected?
Yeah, absolutely. So my grandparents have been pretty good about video calling, voice calling ever since we've grown up with it. And they actually, for us, they always come visit 6 months of every year from India, and they obviously weren't able to come during the pandemic. So we relied on it a lot more too. But after that, when they were able to come, we took all of these new things that we had, all of the funding that we had, and we were able to help them understand how to make their homes smarter and things that they didn't have access to in India. So definitely used it to help them. The lesson plans are great, something that all our volunteers have created, and they love just to see how everything unfolded. So,
That's awesome. Tell me more about the lesson plans. How did you create the first ones? How did you get advice in building them out? And then what was the core focus of them?
yeah, so just like everything else, it was really a huge iteration. So, the first lesson plan I created, I put a bunch of instructions into a Google Doc. I didn't have very many graphics or pictures. It's just when I'm reading an assignment, I had modeled it to something very similar to that. And I took it into a senior citizen home and I realized that people were taking notes on it. People were using their magnifying glasses to read it. And I realized that I'd probably not done the best thing by creating it in that format. So over time, what we did was we made the text larger. We added graphics. We added space to take notes so that they wouldn't have to bring their personal notebooks with them. So at every single point, we iterated it to make it a little bit better. And our virtual volunteers, every step of the way, were willing to make those edits. And without them, we wouldn't have been able to have this extensive library, basically, of lesson plans that we print out and take with us in person. But that was probably the biggest thing that we've worked on and has continuously changed based on the feedback that we get.
I really appreciate how you don't discredit someone's intelligence or the value that they can give just because they have age disability with visibility, with struggle to take notes and to understand, to put in a lot of extra effort to make sure that things come across smoothly. That's wonderful. Have you ever gone like to the other extreme? Have you ever considered making almost only images or like zero word graphics to explain things?
Yeah, we've considered it all across. So something that we do at the end of each session is we actually have a feedback form of what are new topics that people would like to learn, what are more things that they would like to know. So that's something that we actually include in the feedback form is like what changes would you like to see in the lessons that we give you? Because our help is really only as good as the people that it helps. And so the things that they've given us have been feedback on we want space for notes or we only want pictures on this thing. So based on the feedback that we get from them, we try to make those incorporations. So to your point, all pictures has never been the feedback that we've gotten. They've really wanted larger text, but shorter points to explain what we're trying to get across. So that's our primary format, but we've definitely tried to include more graphics from our perspective too.
Awesome. When you pick graphics, do you try to tailor them to a specific region, or do you use the same macro lesson plans across all the set centers, I guess, that you go to?
Yeah, we don't really do it by region, but something that we do is iPhone versus an Android phone or how those outlooks might look different because
Mm.
texting is different for everyone, calling is different for everyone. So that's something that we noticed early on is we couldn't generalize how to do something. It really depends on the device. Or an iPhone versus an iPad. Those are two very different devices to do a similar function on. And while it seemed really intuitive to us and a lot of our volunteers, we realized it really wasn't that intuitive to the people that we were helping. So that's a huge change that we made is changing the plans by device.
Cool. By device instead of by area. Super helpful. Do you feel like you get a sense of what products are doing well or apps or things of that nature? Well, how do you incorporate AI into the picture when educating?
Yeah, so sometimes I think I get ahead of myself when I'm making these lessons is just like you, I'm thinking about how do I incorporate AI or how do I make their home smarter or how do I improve their quality of life? And when we get there, we almost always realize that I guess the top level of the help that we can provide is something similar to online grocery shopping or an Instacart. So AI like is huge and we use it personally to help us with our lesson plans or to come up with new ideas of ways that we can improve quality of life, since a lot of times it's not feedback that we would get if people don't know that these devices exist. But from our perspective, a lot of the newer technology changes don't affect our lesson plans just because it is a little bit further out there than the help that most people need.
That's fantastic. So really meeting them where they're at and understanding what the real challenges are instead of prescribing new solutions that don't necessarily fit in.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
wow. Do you feel like you mentioned Instacart? So do you give them options perhaps with Instacart, DoorDash, Grubhub, things like that, or do you teach them as like a broad spectrum? Have you gotten partnerships with any of them?
So that's something we actually are looking into is trying to start these partnerships or get them, but we haven't had too much success so far on that front. But what we learned is originally, even for food delivery, we had tried the DoorDash, Instacart, all these different methods and explaining the differences between each one. And what we kind of realized was that made the senior citizens not want to use any of them at all, just because of the complexity and nuances of each specific software or app. So what we try to do is just stick to one, find something that works for them, has a consistent membership and something that they can use every single week. And that's what seemed to work best for us. So whether it is DoorDash or Instacart, I think our main point or our main perspective is to stick with one thing that they already know and understand very well.
Perfect. Sticking to one and just teaching it instead of giving them too many options and confusing them. What about other systems? So we've talked about phone calls and how you can connect people, text. We've talked about sourcing food and helping get more accessibility. Is there any other like core centers? Oh, there's the homes. There's leveling up their homes, things of that nature, Google's. But what else do you feel like is there that was missing for these senior citizen homes?
Yeah, I think the main pillars that we really focused on was, like I said before, where we started, was just connectivity. So something as simple as sending a picture or getting pictures of your grandkids, that was seemed really important to people, and something that we hadn't realized was something we could put a lot of time and focus into. And sending those photos back and forth ended up being even more popular than calling or video calling just because of everyone's busy schedules. So that was one big piece was connectivity with family. Like you said, one piece was leveling up people's homes. People didn't realize that if you plug in Alexa, you can just talk to it. You don't even need to be able to have all these technological skills or remember how to do things. You can ask it what you want. It can turn off your lights if you have a smart switch. So it really just helped even people with limited mobility issues was something that we were trying to help out there. And
Mm.
then we're always just trying to do ease of life. So any kind of grocery shopping or food delivery or even Amazon ordering. So just helping them make things a little bit easier instead of having to go to the store or wait for a shuttle that'll go to a place that they're trying to get a specific item from. So those have been our main pillars that we focused on.
To be sure, you're developing a very strong understanding of a large consumer group. And to be able to use that for good, to educate and support them instead of use it for marketing, is something that I am deeply inspired by.
Yeah, well, thank you.
So, when you when you say you're bridging the gap, and we talk about now, I mean you've run for almost like half a decade. What do you see a decade out from now? Like very far out? what do you think is going to be the turnover as new people come into the senior citizen homes that perhaps have more understanding of technology? And what do you think are going to be the things that are never going to be needed?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So for right now, I guess we see a lot of the same things, or we need to help in a lot of the same ways, but we're already seeing the change in what people need, or already seeing the change in what people are asking for. So that's very important to me is to figure out how to pivot. Where our mission is to really bridge the intergenerational divide. And like you said, it really doesn't need to be specific to technology. Whether that's finding ways to be still involved in the workforce is something that I've noticed a lot more, is people still want to have ways to be involved within the community. So something that we were looking at doing is helping senior citizens partner back with these Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And they were former teachers, they were former educators, and that's something that they could use to still give back to the community. So something I maybe see in the future is fostering this connectivity in different ways, maybe even going backwards and helping the senior citizens find ways that they can give back to the community since they're really willing to spend their time that way. So that's something that I see us pivoting towards in the future. And maybe 10 years from now, connection will look completely different than what it looked like for me when I started it. But I guess that's my goal.
Wow, so Bridge the Gap really is a two-way street, not only helping youth volunteer and educate the community of senior citizens, but also have those same senior citizens get new opportunities to volunteer and give back and stay involved in the community, which once they were so deeply ingrained in, but now perhaps they've lost because so much has gone online.
Right, exactly.
Huh. Do you feel like spending so much time with them has led you to spend less time online or have less interest on being online?
Yeah, so for me, it's been a little bit twofold. So when I go and help them, I realize not only how much time that we spend online, but how much maybe I could spend doing more things for my communities or even expanding our own service. So for me, that's has been one of the best parts of it. But also in turn, it makes me more curious about what technologies are out there or more ways that I can help them inherently using technology. So that makes me research even more on ways that we could possibly help them or things that we could teach. So I guess maybe it makes me a little bit more online, but makes me feel much more connected to the time that I spend when I'm not.
So as long as you're being intentional about your time, that's what matters. And this has helped you significantly in understanding how other people are intentional to make sure that you're framing it the right way. What do you think is one of the biggest challenges you've had going through this that we haven't touched on yet?
One of the biggest challenges is just retention. So while people are really involved throughout their high school career, kind of similar to me is I have a really great reason to stay involved and I've loved the work that I've done, but not everyone is as invested and not everyone, this is like not their exact passion. So what's been hardest to retain people after they graduate high school or keep our volunteers as they move through different phases of life. So that's one thing that I've really struggled with, especially as I went to college, is making sure that we still have incoming people that are willing to continue the initiative. So I think that's probably been our biggest struggle.
Mm. Making sure that this outlasts you as well as others so that the work can speak for itself instead of speaking for a founder. Yeah, I think it's our duty to build organizations that prevail without us just because it's the most selfless thing we can possibly do. And for the nonprofit space especially, it's something where you don't get to extract and maintain equity, but you do get to give it on to someone else and inspire them to lead and live this life with a little more compassion and purpose.
Right, exactly.
Varuni, thank you so much for joining not only this session, but this new cohort of TRIIBE. I'm so excited to be able to provide support, not only on the financial, but also with mentorship, giving you that community space and platform to speak and share your work. But also thank you for being such an upstanding citizen, for providing support in your local community and spreading that lesson plan and option to so many others.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to work with everyone and understand how their passions can even work with what they're doing to hopefully work together.
Wonderful. Take care.
TRIIBE Talk is a Streamr studio production. Try Streamr free at streamr.nyc. Executive producer David Walters, videography and editing by David Walters, graphic design by Tristan Bresnan, music by Benjamin Senmana, hosted by Kyle Mathis. TRIIBE, taking root today to advance tomorrow.